Good evening and welcome to the February 13th, 2018 Jonathan Board meeting. We have had open forum and it just concluded. So with that, like I said, I call to order. We have designated quorum. First item on the agenda this evening is to adopt the agenda. I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as presented or look for any amendments.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? A motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is to adopt the minutes from our January meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the minutes as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. All right, next item is the management report.
All right.
Stephen and Christy here this evening.
Yeah, bunch of us. First thing is annual meeting. We are all set to go next week. Registration starts at 6 p.m. Meeting will start at 6:30 sharp. Any questions on the annual?
So typically for anyone here, now the way I see it is all directors are welcome to sit up here, but as I've been told in the past, it's not required. Does that sound right? So typically it's myself up here and whoever else would like to come to the meeting. But
We'll just let you sit here by yourself.
Yeah.
We can handle
no, I just thought I'd mention that because last year I think we had a couple that were in the audience and then we had a couple up here. So just so people know, they're welcome to sit up here.
Okay. The next thing I have on here is gardens. I received a phone call from the resident who has been allowing us to use their water for the last however many years. I've never talked to her until last week. She indicated that she, in the past, has been reimbursed $50 or so a month for the use of her water, and was asked by the previous on-site manager to provide City of Chaska water bills, and they said they can't seem to locate them. So she was just wondering if they were going to be able to get reimbursed, and if that would be a discussion we could talk about. And then also wanted to let us know that they're having a landscaping project this next summer, so they won't be able to let us use their water. So that kind of draws another obstacle for us for the gardens this next year.
So I don't remember it ever coming before the board about reimbursing the water bill. Maybe that's something just happened offline between the management company and the
No, so
resident.
it sounds like the resident has said in previous years
Right.
that we have agreed to reimburse, but there's been nothing that I have seen.
They haven't submitted anything.
No.
Not in my 3.5 years here, no.
Yeah, nor in my time either. But I saw that there was a request for action here. What is the cost to bring water down there? Have we found that out from the city yet?
No. She said she was gonna talk to the city, and I don't know, oh, you mean to bring water down there from the city? No, I have not.
I mean, if we don't have water there of our own, I don't know
Right.
why we wouldn't.
We were trying to
So-
come up with solutions of what we can do. We talked about rain barrels, we talked about, drilling a well, which would be crazy expensive. And then we talked about having the city tap into their water to have water down there for us, which to me seems like the most logical. So I can definitely reach out to the city tomorrow and find out what that would cost.
I mean, it's not sustainable. I mean, I've been on board for a number of years. I've never heard of bill being reimbursed.
No.
I mean, we should have our own water. If that's, we put a new house up, you get water. We have garden plot not too far away, so I would suggest that we would explore that option.
Mhm.
And then rain barrels would be a backup option if it wasn't financially feasible. However, I don't know how well that would work,
I don't either.
since typically rain bills are used when you collect water from a larger source into one.
And even getting water down there if it doesn't rain, if it doesn't rain for 3 weeks. I don't know how we get water down there. I mean, we have the watering tank, but it fits in the back of the truck, and we really can't drive the truck down there. And we have to drive on grass partially, so,
It seems like if we don't have water, we don't have a garden.
right?
Right.
That is right.
I know we have a garden plot committee under unfinished business, so we can either, continue this conversation. There really isn't an update on that. as we get to new unfinished business, but there are some things that I'd like to mention with that. So we can either continue talking about the garden plots in this, or we can kind of continue this discussion as we go forward in unfinished business. So, I'm gonna let you continue.
Will it continue? Okay.
Continue with anything else.
Okay, so Stephen and Vern and I met with the city last week, I think it was, about the underpasses. Questions were going back and forth, and they finally just called a meeting, so we sat down with 5 city officials, the 3 of us, kind of discussing the underpasses. I included a map in here that shows the 5, along with one of them that the city has taken over, because it's now considered a bridge, so they need to maintain that. We did ask them what is considered a tunnel, what's considered a bridge, and I believe they said anything that's 8 to 10 feet in diameter, width, or height, if it goes over that, then it's considered a bridge. The 4 remaining ones were all the wood ones, the wood tunnels. Brian Jung said he does inspect those every year, but it's more of a safety inspect. It's nothing professional or anything like that. Bill Monk mentioned that he doesn't see any road repairs around any of those tunnels in the next 5 to 10 years, unless something else would happen. So they shouldn't be interfering with them. And I asked them, you know, do you think that they're safe? Do you think we should get them inspected? And you know, they kind of just said it's up to you. But I asked them what happens if a tunnel collapses, someone's hurt, or the road collapses with the tunnel. Who's responsible? It is, you know, it's the city road, it's a Jonathan tunnel. Who's responsible? And they didn't really know how to answer that.
They did answer it in the sense that their first priority is to get the road back open. So they'll do what they need to do in order to get a passable solution. If that means rebuilding a underpass or tunnel, then that's what would happen. And at that point, the financial side of it would be dealt with. But they said most importantly, it's getting the roads back open.
Even if they had to reroute the trails around the tunnel, which they said they've looked at in the past, and that kind of would be a difficult situation too, but, so yeah, they said their number 1 would be to get this road up and running for residents. That would be their number 1 goal before fixing anything.
The one interesting thing is with this is if we were to get it inspected and we found there to be a deficiency, I think one other thing I would recommend you keeping in mind is, well, how do we coordinate that so that obviously the city's road can stay open, and yet the Jonathan-owned underpass is repaired or fixed. That could be a potential issue.
Right. So, I guess we need to decide, or the board needs to decide, is it something we want to get inspected for the safety, you know, just for the liability reasons for ourselves? Is it something that we want to, I don't even know. I tried looking up companies to see what they would charge for an inspection. I didn't have very good luck. The city gave me a name, and I couldn't find it.
Stantec?
Yep. So I tried to contact them, and nobody got back to me, but I obviously can research further, just to see if we can get some pricing on what it would cost to have somebody come and inspect.
They're certainly credible. I know,
Yeah.
I've heard that name many times
Yeah.
in regards to civil and engineering inspection and safety. The interesting thing here now, if I look at it, is we have a reserve study that guides us with the useful life of, so how do we separate the safety issue from what the reserve advisors are saying that the useful life of that structure is? That's, for me, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that. Not a problem by any means, but.
You know, and a point that you're making there too is that if you look at the previous tunnel that was rebuilt, it was charged back to us by the city through an assessment for 15 years, over the course of 15 years, so there really wasn't a large capital outlay from the get-go, because the city looks like they did bonding. But you said a few things that kind of perked my ears. The first one is I saw that you have 10 pages of documents that would be great for institutional memory. I would suggest that you add who the attendees were, what date it was, what time it was, so we can document, you know, maybe the facts of what was discussed at that meeting.
Yep.
For our own institutional memory. And the other thing I kind of heard was insurance and liability. And since the insurance renewal was in our packet, do we have coverage? Because I don't believe we own that property, we'd have to have an easement. Was that discussed at all?
No.
I know they said we own the tunnel, but if you look at the GIS maps, we don't own the tunnel, it's underneath the road. So is there an easement that's been filed, and if that's the case, what's the language in the easement?
Sure.
And then do we need insurance pursuant to whatever's in that easement?
Yeah, so I think that's an item, definitely. I think the other item is to identify whether or not we think it needs to be inspected for any safety issues.
And I think that's the easy answer, I mean, why wouldn't we
Yeah,
inspect it?
absolutely. You'd absolutely have the support there.
Yeah.
To get it inspected?
Yeah, I mean, people are jogging underneath those.
Yep.
There's kids underneath those, there are hundreds and hundreds of humans walking underneath those, so it's very important that people would feel safe and know that if they were to ever come and ask us, are these inspected, then we'd have something in place to say that, yes, we do inspect them. So I think what we look for, and I'll stop short of saying it's a board directive, I think I'd rather see you take initiative on this, but to really look for a way to create a process or a system for how you would go about inspecting these underpasses on a periodic basis.
Okay. All right. So I guess we'll look into that more and report back when we hear more about it. Any other questions?
Where will this institutional memory live that you're gathering and you're compiling?
Put it in Caliber would probably be the best, like under documents in Caliber system. Don't you think?
Yeah. Then the board would have access to it at any time.
Right?
If there's a file, if we can keep a hard copy file too.
Sure. I have 2 file cabinets.
If someone comes into the office and they want to see it, then technically they'd have access to it, so.
Problem. All right. Next thing was insurance bills. Find the page here, sorry. We reached out to Marcia McLennan. And it's page 27 and 28, 26, 27, 28. As you can see, it's page 25, sorry. We requested renewal for 3 bids from 3 other companies, because Marcia McLennan is a broker, right? And so West Bend is our insurance agent, and they indicated that they don't feel any other carrier would fit the program or pricing better than what we currently have. So you had one other contact that you were,
Yeah.
remember?
Just trying to work with Nesbit.
Nesbit, yeah.
This isn't new to the board. For some of you new people, we've had a challenging time in the past getting numerous insurance companies to bid on our insurance rate and insurance package. And I think it really stems to the idle house, if memory serves me right. I think that's somewhat of a hang-up. Is that right, Carrie?
Yeah. That was the biggest one, like, I remember American Family denied us because of that. These 2 were saying that they were at a class. Do you guys want to inform about what you're saying? There's only 4 or 5 companies out there, or?
For home associations.
Yeah.
What, 6, not 6,
6?
5 to 6 carriers left that are currently, insuring associations, and they're getting to be fewer and fewer. West Bend is one that is still in the game.
That's due mainly to the number of storms that are coming through Minnesota right now. We're considered a catastrophic state. So we've seen a lot of carriers, and we've seen this in the past happen as well. Carriers leave, and then if the storms, if we get fewer and fewer storms over the years, more and more carriers will come back. But then we've had a really bad summer this last summer with storms and some very high claims, and so several carriers are now leaving the market. So there's fewer carriers that should be out to even get insurance.
So is that an HO6 issue, or, because
No.
we don't have a policy like that.
No, not
Typically
an
we have a general
HO6
liability.
issue. Yeah, no, not an HO6 issue.
Say that again?
Not an HO6
Oh.
issue.
Because that doesn't fit our box.
Right, no,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for us, trying to think of what our responsibilities are as board members, in this case, I don't see how we could help remove any obstacles in this case. The only other option would be to self-insure ourselves, but the cost associated with that would be astronomical. And it's really not even an option at this point, but.
But we reached out to the one broker that we've been with for a number of years. Has there been any other brokers or insurance companies contacted directly that we've given a declarations page to and said, will you take a look at us and write us a quote?
Or the response that you get is, they're not even willing to write a quote.
Right.
So have we
American Family was one.
did that this year?
Yep.
And so they responded back to us in writing, said they won't
It
even.
was basically responded to and such that this time we don't have any carriers that fit the program or pricing as well as West Bend.
But that came from American Family?
That came from your current, that's from Marsh
All right, so
McLennan.
my question is we reached out to the one broker that we work with today currently.
Yeah, who represents
How many
multiple
other companies,
companies.
either broker or direct insurers, have we reached out to obtain a quote?
We reached out to Nesbit, and I don't have anything back from him at this point.
So the issue that I take is that, it's our duty to get competitive quotes, but if we don't even, put 3 requests out there, we're not doing our duty, so.
Understood.
American Family denied, and then he hasn't heard back from them, and then this would be 3. And as a broker, they can go out to different companies and ask them, but they're just, we can still try to get bids.
So our policy ends on, what is it,
June of 18, I think.
June of 2018, we need to renew?
So we've been through this many times before. Next month in March, we're gonna hear, we won't write a quote out that far in advance. It has to be within a certain time frame. So just know that that's a possible rebuttal we'll get next month in March. So, last year we went through that, right, Carrie?
Mm-hmm.
It was too early to look for quotes. So there's only a short window. I mean,
Right.
you gotta pick your poison here, I guess. And this is a renewal that's in the packet? Or this is just what we pay currently?
This is what we pay currently.
Okay. So we haven't even put this out for bid yet.
Right, because we can't find any companies that will bid it. American Family denied, he's checked with Nesbit, and Marsh McLennan said that there's nobody else that could be competitive, so.
See, I'm confused. Is it time to put it out for bids now, or what are we doing now? Are we just looking at our insurance coverage?
I don't know. I've never done this in the past.
So normally, there's a, loss runs is what an insurance company needs if that is gonna bid on the property. So, 60 days out, you can start getting loss runs possibly. So that's why you're saying next month we're gonna hear they won't bid yet.
Yes. Yep.
But that's based on that loss run, because they don't wanna bid you too soon, because if something comes up, some kind of storm or something, they're gonna maybe wanna change their bid, because maybe there's more risk than what they realized. Maybe that has something to do with the idle house or whatever the issue may be. But you are pretty early in the process, so he said he hasn't heard back from Nesbit. I'm guessing that's because they're not gonna give you a bid quite yet if they can find someone to bid the property.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to drill down to is, am I asking, what are we really doing? Are we just looking at our coverage? Are we going to go out and bid?
It's
'Cause-
probably a little early in the timing
Okay.
as far as getting bids right now.
Okay.
March, April probably is if they can find someone that will bid it, and,
Even May.
yeah, it might even be May, so if you're the end of June.
So maybe this is just one word of advice then for you guys is, it's good that we have this information and we can have a discussion about it. What I would suggest is, you went into some great detail here, there is some correspondence, what I would recommend is more of a summary or bullet point summary as to where your efforts have been. And then when the time comes, when you're bringing it before the board, you're looking for a decision, you're looking for a motion on where to move next. It's just a word of advice.
Gotta make it simple for me. Sometimes I don't get it right away, so. Tell me what you need.
always think it's good to bring these discussion points up, especially when the snow's still on the ground and we have plenty of time to continue our efforts on assessing, determining where we go from here in terms of our insurance.
Okay. All right, the next item is the Alexander Circle sign. We had Geico, who was the insurance holder for that resident, come out, took a look at it, gave us a claim number. I can't find what page this is on. And as soon as we get it out for bid, which we are in the process of doing, we just have to submit the invoice and get that taken care of. Being they will cover the bid no matter what, is it something that the board still wants to approve?
So they want it to be brought to the state it was prior to the accident. I'm sure they'll want to be involved with what that looks like. You're probably gonna have to provide them, I'm sure the insurance company would require at least one bid or one idea on how this should go about, how we should go about doing it. The fact that it's probably gonna be equal to or more than, let's say, a couple $1,000 or $2,500, you're probably gonna have the need to go out and get a few different options.
That's
Does
our
that,
plan.
does that sound right to
Yeah.
people?
They're gonna want more.
If the insurance company isn't requiring more than one,
Then, yeah.
you're probably gonna have the board looking for more than one.
So did they give you an authorization to repair up to a dollar amount? So they're just looking for you to get a bid.
Yep.
Give it to them, they'll say yes or no.
Yep, exactly. And I asked him if there was a limit, he said, nope, no limit. He said, as long as you repair it to the same state it was in before. And they took pictures and everything, so we have pictures, so.
But the adjuster is going to be involved to an extent.
Right.
With whatever the design or the plan for getting it fixed is, they're gonna wanna be involved
Sure.
in that decision-making process.
Yep, so as soon as we collect the bids, we have to submit them and then.
I don't know, I mean, do we need three options here? I don't think it's really worth three options.
Have we used someone else to do masonry work before?
I have no idea.
I mean, a little bit down at the.
Concrete,
well,
but
we
not
didn't do
brick.
concrete. That was just removal and asphalt.
It's not our money that we're,
Right.
It's more the quality of the work.
yeah, it's really more the quality of the work here.
While they're out, they should look at that Tuscany Hill sign, and it's got a crack and needs some repair too. I know that was on the assessment from last year.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't see why this would be a competitive process of choosing a contractor to present to an insurance company. I would say this is well within your authority to go out and take initiative and get this sign fixed. That's just my opinion. I'd like to welcome anyone else to address that situation.
When's the last time we've had a sign get hit? Fixed?
I don't know.
I was thinking the Alexander Circle, but we didn't do any masonry work.
What
Or did we
was-
we had a tuck pointed.
What's our
When we did,
newest-
I'm sorry.
What's our newest association or neighborhood?
It doesn't have, well, the city put a new facade up on Clover Ridge, so I don't know if the city contracted that out to someone, but it might be a good option if they've done work in this association before. But it sounds like you're taking care of it, so I don't know if there's much that we can provide.
Sounds good. Capital expenditures I listed on here, things that we're looking at for the year on page 4. Is there anything else that anyone else thought of that we should add to this list?
Any items that come up from the neighborhood assessment?
And I looked at those and there's nothing major.
Nothing capital? Okay.
The only thing would be adding that playground in the Jubilee Park area.
What about the concrete in, it's a mail station in the Clover Ridge area where the concrete is severely cracked?
Oh,
I don't think that would be maintenance, because that seems like it would be more than, putting some new paint up or some new shingles.
Yeah. We'll have to get some bids on that, I guess, and it's pretty bad.
Yeah, I would definitely get bids on it, so we could consider it for a capital project.
Okay,
The board would have to make that call.
all right.
Could I make the suggestion that the vendors that bid that also bid the steps that need to be replaced in Mill Pond area, right? That's on
Okay.
your list here. And the steps at the pavilion. I'm not sure if we're gonna go timber, if we're going concrete, or what the plan was, but
Last we talked about the pavilion stairs, we tabled it, but considered putting a handrail in the spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have bids for it,
Mhm.
we can reuse those, or we can have this person add a third or fourth bid, whatever it was.
I'm just thinking there's gotta be some economies of scale once we do, I mean, we got concrete all over the place that may or may not need to be repaired.
Mhm.
You know, instead of doing it piecemeal, is there some
Yep.
benefit?
Okay,
The other thing about capital projects is, I think what I would like to see you guys do is go out and identify capital expenditures or potential capital expenditures that would positively affect our association. If you remember, if you recall, I think, and this goes back possibly over a year ago, I know that there was a talk of a playground in Julian Park.
yeah,
Juliet.
Juliet Park.
Yeah, so part of this is, we have a reserve study that's done, but the other side of it is go out and identify areas that we could potentially positively influence and invest in our association to uphold property values and preserve the association's integrity. That's what I think capital improvements entail.
Yeah,
So, and just because you go out and identify areas or potential capital projects, doesn't mean they're all gonna get chosen or they're all gonna get done. But we're giving the board the opportunity to assess and to determine, what should get done and when.
okay. All right, anything else on that? Next thing is the copier. Been trying to, it's very similar to the old one. I did realize that we do not have a stapler in it, which is a little weird. So if you noticed your closed session was just kind of that, I don't know what it's called Stapleless, but it only does 5 pages at a time.
That's
So I did contact them, and they said if we want a stapling system, they would bring us a new machine. It would cost an extra $30 a month, the lease, and I said we don't need it. I'll just use a manual stapler. But, so that was one thing I noticed. But the color copies, Stefan had asked last month where we are at. And as you can see, we've gone down significantly since we've taken colored copies away from residents. We're allowed 12,000 black and white, we're only at 37. And the colored copies were allowed 15, and we're only at 741 per quarter. So,
And this could seasonalize a little bit.
Sure.
So I wouldn't look at these and just assume that, well, we're gonna be way under budget.
great,
We have too many.
yep,
This could change.
definitely.
Interesting though.
That's just an update on that.
We're in a 5-year agreement with our current supplier on the copier, or is it 3? All right, what was it?
I don't remember. Natalie did that, I think it was
That's okay.
3. I can look it up, though.
How was the feedback from the association on those that couldn't be color? Was it,
Some people were very upset. Some people understood because they know how expensive it is, so people are like, oh, I understand. And some people are very understanding and just said, just do black and white, we'll color it or whatever. There were some people that were quite upset about it, saying, they pay their dues and
yeah,
this has always been an amenity and now we just take it away. And I've told multiple people that have come in and said that to, email me and fill out a request for action, but nobody has, so. So I would say maybe a handful that have been upset about it, but.
and they can still color copy, just not that many, right?
No, no.
They took it away.
Oh, we took it away, that's right.
Yeah, and that's a good opportunity for you to engage them a little bit. One thing, I could say, one thing I'd recommend is trying to talk to them about, what this all entails, right? Yes, you pay dues, but the board is tasked with keeping operating expenses at ideal level, so
And I
that, so
do
that dues
that-
are not raised, and that we
Yeah.
don't have an issue with, you know, not being able to make reserve payments.
I've done that, and most people, you know, kind of get it then when you say what it costs and stuff, but some people still think just
Yeah.
because they had it for so long, but. And even maybe over a year, if I keep track every quarter, what, maybe we could put color copies back at a limited number, like Slade said. You know, you can do so many a month or so many a year per resident or something, but that might be hard to manage. So. I think that's it for my management report. Unless there's any questions.
So Stephen, this is your second week on the job?
Sounds right.
Well, welcome, we're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Look forward
Happy
to
to be
working
here.
with you, and thanks Christy for coming this evening.
Sure.
I've got a couple questions about the report. These are higher level topics. The spring assessment, when is it gonna be, when's it slated
We're
to
gonna
start
do,
the spring assessment?
As soon as it's nice out, but April, and then report in May.
And then so that spring assessment will then drive the work plan for the temporary staff?
Yep.
And those are planning to come on board?
Well, we don't really know that yet. And that's some things I need to talk with Justin about too, because I know there were some changes maybe from last year as to how many we were gonna plan on having on this summer. I guess we just have to figure out our budget and figure out what we're.
It's really a budget question,
Yeah.
not so much a, you know, per person.
Right. We just have to figure out what we can afford
Yeah.
to stay under that budget, so we just have to figure that out, I guess.
The second one is the weighted budget from the December meeting. We had brought forward the fact that we're seasonal and we'd like a weighted budget,
Yep,
since
Kurt was-
operation expenses are gonna be
Didn't he send that to you, Justin, or?
No.
potentially tight this year.
Okay, I had emailed him right after our meeting, and he said he had sent it to Amy, so probably with all the changeover, he probably forgot, so.
Okay.
I will definitely get that.
And the last one was you have trail maps on the things that you'll be addressing in 2018.
Okay?
Do you see that as being well, it's on your list.
Yep.
Do you see that as being a capital project?
Well, it depends. So when we met with the city, they have just completed some new maps. They said they could print them for us. Sounded like at no cost. So they actually asked me already what maps they wanted, so we'd have to obviously zoom in as to which areas we want zoomed in. So if they can print them for us, that was a big expense. And we just have to figure out how to, you know, put them in plexiglass or laminate them, or how we like to do that. We talked about contacting the Boy Scouts again, maybe for an Eagle project. We could keep it very low cost. That would be a great.
And that's my concern though, is, I appreciate the low cost piece, but it's one of we spent so much money on improving our trail system. And when we look at some of those signs that are out, that are, you know, they've been dated a number of years without maintenance, but they were put together very economically. I think it would be wise of us to really take a look at perhaps doing a more permanent solution.
Sure.
And that could be, you know, I was just up north with a snowmobiling trip this last weekend, and they have beautiful, they're almost like metal signs, but they look very permanent.
Yeah.
And
Marsh
I know-
Culver brought that up.
And I know there was talk in the past about, you know, having one side of it be the trail map and the other side it would be kind of a piece of Jonathan history or whatever it might be, but I think that this would be a good year to try to tackle something like that, since we've now completed most of the trail project.
That's funny, you must have been reading my mind, I was thinking that same thing. Because when I first moved to Jonathan, obviously there's a lot of trails. Those maps are very nice because you can get easily lost.
Yes.
And some of the maps are under a lot of trees, and then the moisture will drip from the trees on them, and the plastic scratches. Fortunately, we get kids that'll take keys, or not on purpose maybe, but maybe on purpose. But I agree with you, I think looking for a nice option so it stays that way for a long period of time would probably be our best route, I agree. Because they'll get beat up pretty quick.
Yeah.
I mean, with all the rain and wind and snow and whatever.
It'd be a nice piggyback on some of the other things that are on your work plan, such as the doggy pots. You're really planning out where your doggy pots would be most effective in adding some. I saw that was on your list too.
Yep.
So maybe making that one bigger, kind of a capital project, if you will.
Yep.
Whether it be trash cans, doggy pots, relocate them to a better location, putting the trail maps at a better location.
Okay.
Those are my three things.
That's good.
Yeah.
If there's any further questions on the management report? If not, we'll move on to unfinished business. The city cable memorandum of agreement update. If you recall, last month I was tasked with coordinating with the city as relates to putting an agreement in place that relates to us utilizing the city hall chambers for our meetings. We had said that we would like to go for a 6-month option, with an option to terminate it with a period of 90 days. The city will not accept that. What the city would have as a minimum standard would be a minimum of 1-year agreement with an option of 60 days notice. So if the board would like to continue to empower me to coordinate with the city or go a different direction, we'd have to make that call. But one thing I would suggest here that people understand is we do have this 60 days notice, which is essentially a 60-day agreement. So I wasn't limited. I could have, I would have liked to have just been able to make the decision on moving forward, but with what the board had tasked me to do, I wasn't able to get this done. So we would I would recommend that the board move forward with a 1-year agreement with 60 days notice to terminate.
So moved.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Call a vote, all in favor?
Wait, no.
Sorry,
Wait, no. So, you're talking about continuing here.
What we need to have in place, what the
Yeah.
city would like to have in place is an agreement for utilizing the service that we are currently utilizing within the city chambers. But as you remember, what the board has been discussing is the potential to move back to the Karen House,
Yes.
which is something that, if you look at this, what the city is asking us to do, and you look at the objectives and the goals of the association, I don't think we have a conflict there. I think we can still move forward and explore investing in our Karen House to utilize it as a meeting space. So I don't see a big issue with that.
So the thing you're asking for is, we need to have a little something on the side, even though we're still thinking about the Karen House or whatever.
Yeah.
See, I got it now. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. All right, garden plot committee. So there's no new updates with this garden plot committee. The one thing I would just like to express to the board is there has not been a great deal of organization and effort from my part on working with this committee. I know we have Mame and Kay here this evening. Judy's also on it, and John Hayes, who was a former director on the board, was also on it. And I don't think we had a really good understanding of who was chairing the committee. I don't recall if I volunteered or John volunteered. What I would just like to mention and tell this board is that I need to step back from any involvement on the garden plot committee. I just have too much going on, and I don't feel like I'm providing the level of effort and the involvement that I need to. So with that said, I apologize for not continuing to engage our committee with in regards to these garden plots. I can still certainly be involved to an extent, but I just don't think that I can be the point person on spearheading this garden plot committee.
Does it come with free vegetables?
No.
So if memory serves me right, at the last meeting, it was decided that we would continue to engage with members, or to at least to find members that have a stake in the garden plots, work with them on identifying potential solutions to the various challenges we have. I would say that that's still a very important element of the garden plot committee, and I do think it needs to continue. I would just look for support from other directors to support these efforts. But it does bring us back to the idea, though, that without water, there is no
I was
gardens.
just gonna say,
Right.
we're kind of in a
Exactly.
jam on this one right now.
Yeah. Where to turn from here?
May I make a suggestion? You offer free vegetables for participants.
Can't grow 'em if you don't have
I know, we don't have plots.
Oh, that's right, no water.
I don't know.
Don't forget the fence either.
So this is gonna be
Right.
something that,
Management has a recommendation for the water issue.
We have one, a
Not the
recommendation
rain.
that,
They had another one, right?
that
the
was
rain
in,
barrels.
yeah, that was in their
It
management
has to
report.
rain.
Yeah.
But then there was one about finding like another neighbor
Yeah.
who would,
That was a suggestion. That it has. They'd be willing, if we thought maybe if their water bill's $100 a month, we did a percentage of whatever their bill was monthly. If they submitted the bill, we pay 20% or 50%. I don't even know.
You know, if we're paying someone's water bill, we should just pay the whole water bill. Water's cheap.
That's why I suggested that.
But I think a
It just
longer-term
doesn't seem
solution
clean, yeah.
is for us to put in water service.
Right.
I mean,
except for others, are the plots going to be there long-term?
We don't know.
hopefully the garden committee will make a recommendation.
So that's something that's ongoing.
Now's
I
our
would just
chance.
say that this is
Now's our
definitely a
chance.
topic that's gonna keep coming up.
Right,
Well, and spring's coming.
I know, I know,
in like 2 months.
I know.
When do you open the reservations for the plots?
They're already reserved.
They're open all year, so I've already had people call.
Really?
Was there any
I mean,
rule?
2 people.
So we don't have a recommendation about rule changes yet either, so that's pushed out the next year also. Huh?
Let's close them. That's my opinion. Get rid of them. Costs too much per person that uses them.
So this garden plot can,
I'm gonna stay on it.
I know.
Okay.
What else would you do with the space?
Who cares?
As you can see, this garden plot has plagued us with not being able to figure out a good path forward here. We don't have any water.
Well, we were thinking about, remember, moving them to over by, I don't even know the name of the park.
Friendship Park.
Friendship Park.
Well, the neighbors
There's
at
no,
Friendship
there's no
don't-
parking.
But there's a
the
little
neighbors don't
parking
want
there.
it there either.
Is there?
What's a big ball field?
It's in Friendship Park,
Street parking.
street parking. It's a busy road.
There's a little parking
Still would
lot.
need a water service.
You still need water,
Right.
Yeah.
and there's no parking now. People have to walk. But it is city property, so.
Did we ever ask the city? Oh, no. They're interested in dog parks.
Yeah.
They're not interested in it.
Well, the city of Chaska does have community garden areas available, not in Jonathan.
Oh, they do. I
Yeah.
don't know that.
Yeah, they do.
And do they
Where are they?
provide
Do we
water
know?
and all that stuff?
I would imagine so.
Do we know where they are?
Yeah, I have it written down, but,
Okay. I know you did, you talked to
yeah.
somebody.
So then can we sort of, the committee will sort of regroup?
Yeah.
We can regroup and try to have a firm recommendation by next meeting.
That sounds like a good plan.
Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a good
Does
plan.
that give us time still to sort of let people know what the plan is? for the city? And then maybe we can find out how much it costs to get water down there from the city?
Cost of what?
To get water down to the.
Yeah, I'll find that out.
Yeah,
Okay.
so March meeting, we'll have our recommendation. We'll take your recommendation into account, Steve.
Yeah, well, I think Judy agrees with Steve.
Yeah. Okay.
What about Amy, the homeowner that brought it around last year?
Yeah,
Has she been
so.
in contact
They
with?
were the ones that we're going to reach out to.
Mhm.
Oh,
So
okay.
we'll do all of that.
Yeah.
All of that will be included.
All right. Move on. New business. The Karen House remodel. Anything further here, Carrie?
Not really. I was a little confused by the scope, but I don't know if you guys have more questions. I'm not sure why she was confused on the basement either, but Natalie kind of took care of this, so.
She's gonna have to come back in and look
Yeah,
at that
I
again.
told her I'd email her tomorrow, she'll have to come back in and obviously look at the basement and everything.
Okay.
Can I ask a couple questions? So we contracted, what services do we contract them for? Do we know? I know there was a changeover of staff, so you might not have the answer, but what is her role? What is she supposed to provide us?
She's an engineer, she's supposed to provide us a scope, so that we can take the scope and get bids.
Okay, because this is nothing close to a scope.
Right, that's kind of what's.
This is a very rudimentary,
Basic.
yeah, I mean,
I agree.
I'm a little concerned, we're gonna go, we need to figure out what did we contract originally with them for? And then what type of dollar value was this worth?
Remember it was just paid, was it 1,000? He'd have to look it up. This was kind of all just passed over to us.
Because I looked on their website, looks like they do design work also.
Okay,
So maybe this was just the first phase of a multi-phase,
sure.
maybe this wasn't the end work product, I wanna give them
Right.
the benefit of the doubt.
Looks like she was doing structure.
Right.
Right.
So in order to do scope though, you'd have to have design also. Because they'd kinda need to know what we'd like to see there
Yep,
in order to write the scope for the design.
right,
And then after that's done, then we can proceed with getting bids.
sure.
Everybody in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Is there anything we're missing along the path? How about vision of what we'd like to see there? Is that clear?
Well, I know, yeah, I mean, I think Natalie told her that, you know, what we want to use it for and was opening it up, and I think that's why she took that header out, you know, and then put in the beams and stuff to try to open those two rooms up. Besides that, I don't know if there was any, like you said, any design put together as to what the board wants. But, I mean, we've talked to Justin a little bit about it, like putting in flooring and painting and new furniture, but beyond that, I don't really know what the board, what you guys are looking for, what your thoughts are on it.
My biggest concern is the reserve study
Yep.
with, I think it was a budget of $10,000 to renovate the Karen House. That's gonna be, I don't think that would be enough.
Right.
I don't either.
I think, yeah, when the reserve study did that, I think they were thinking more, you know, carpet, flooring, paint. I know that a new window needs to be replaced. I think they were thinking more cosmetic versus structural. So that's something that we'd have to look into.
And I think in November you did analysis too of the cost benefit of how long the payback would be. So there's been some consideration by the board that if it does go over budget, that we would be okay with that.
Absolutely.
I think we had talked, I think one of the numbers was almost double, over 20,000. So I just know there's gonna be a lot of work on your guys' end to kind of nail this down a little bit because there's a lot of ambiguity right now. And I just want to make sure that you have enough from us so that you can answer questions with Ann and then whoever else would be involved.
Okay.
So the idea was, just to clarify, so we're all on the same page, the idea was to take where the conference table is, and there's two almost wing walls, if you will. The idea was to potentially remove those wing walls, which would be require the header since it's load bearing. And then almost, we had thought about maybe flip-flopping where the conference table could be in the larger room, and then that little office could be in that partitioned room.
Yep.
That was a topic of conversation. What else was there discussed when we were there?
Well, I think the flooring would need to be, you could roll chairs around, it'd be versatile.
Window covering. Maybe talked about.
And we were looking for a table that would sit at least 10 people, and then have a spot to have additional chairs, and they could be of the folding variety if they didn't need to be permanent. But I think that's kind of some of the conversation. In order for them to do the design, they're gonna have to pull some of those elements out
Yeah.
from you at the
Those are
time.
all my understandings from what conversations that I've gone about. Beyond that, I.
And then how about the lobby area? There was talk of moving the printer where those chairs were.
Well, I think the reason we were gonna move the printer was taking
Fit
out
the
that
table.
wall there.
Oh, okay.
But if you recall, we think there's ducting behind there.
Yeah.
There has to be. With the furnace directly underneath, I don't know how any stacks would be getting to the second floor. Maybe there is a different area, but I would imagine they're right there.
So perhaps the work product that she provides, if design was included, would be at least two different options
Okay,
of how to most effectively use that space.
sure.
So the scope's one thing, and then the bids are the other.
Yep.
Because weren't we going to move the copier to, by the front door?
We've talked about that, I know Natalie had thrown that out, because those chairs really don't get used. I mean, they do
Right.
a little, but you could have a copier in one chair. Or if we move the office to the back room, the copier's pretty small now.
Yeah.
It could go back in the corner back there too. It would just be rerunning wires. But that would be easy,
Could go where that storage cabinet is too,
yeah.
if that was relocated.
Did Encompass, did they have any suggestions on layout or what they feel would be best for us there?
Not really.
I mean, capacity, if we, maybe this, I don't know much about structure design, but if we're gonna have a table in there, let's say we have 15, 20 people, how sturdy is the floor gonna be? What does it look underneath? Do we need to add another load bar underneath?
Sure.
So I mean, it's an older building. Those would be concerns of mine, especially if we're gonna have a lot of pressure in one area. So I think those things need to be discussed with her. Do we need to spread out the pressure? Because I feel if we just keep it in one spot, there could be some issues with that floor.
Sure.
I don't know what the basement looks like. I don't know what kind of beams are down there.
Yeah, that's a very good point you bring up. The live load associated with having
Yeah, I mean, there's
9
restrictions.
directors, you have management staff, you have maybe 3 to 5 people attending any open forum or vendors. The live load would certainly be something that the engineer should take into account.
I mean, look at, we do the Apple Awards and we're gonna have more people show up. If we were to do them there in the future, I mean,
Right.
I think we gotta look at the broader scope of safety as well.
Could we spend less money fixing up the Karen House and then go some other place for meetings that's cheaper than this? Or
Can
are we
use that?
really wanting to centralize ourselves back to the Karen House, barring no expense?
Well, I definitely would say we shouldn't, we shouldn't just have a blank check associated with
No,
any of
no,
this,
no, but-
obviously.
I thought
Make-
that was our goal.
Making a 100-year-old building safe enough for 20 or 30 people and usable sounds to me very expensive.
If you had, 2 dozen or 3 dozen or 4 dozen people for an annual meeting, you would definitely question whether or not to hold it in the Karen House.
Right.
That's a great point.
You could still, yeah, you wouldn't even fit, but you could still host the annual here maybe, or I know Cloverfield has a area, right, where they host their meetings. I don't know how big it is, I haven't been in there. And usually most meetings are at the most 9, 10, 11, and
Right.
maybe 1 or 2 for 2 or 3 hours. It'd be different if it was every day, then that would be a little bit different, I think, but,
The Cloverfield building is very nice,
yeah,
plenty roomy.
yeah.
I've been there for a couple Clover meetings.
Okay.
So one thing I hear is that, like Slate had mentioned, what's the live load capacity? So maybe getting that from the engineer,
I would get that from her, yeah.
Yep.
we can do the math as far as people goes.
Yeah, I would expect more information on the design and layout. I mean, they're the experts at this stuff.
Yep.
Showing us what they can do with walls is great, but
Just a brief
Well-
interjection, Judith had just told me that the Cloverfield Community Center is $25 an hour and holds, how many people would you say? 150, 200, just as an option for an annual or something.
yeah.
It's comparable to what we pay here. Okay, well, let's keep the conversation going on that. If there's no further discussion on the Karen House remodel, let's go on to our lawn and snow vendor bids. Can you guys go through your background and recommendations for us, please? For the request for action here, required action?
Or,
Lawn and
oh, are we
snow.
moving on? I'm like, oh, sure. Okay, so, obviously, most people should know, we have Ben's Enterprises, they've been here for 15 years. I called him and asked him, he thought it was 13, but it's been 15 years. as I wrote in here, he definitely knows the grounds better than most people do because they're on them every day, every week. So he does know the area very well. Him and his staff know the area very well and what is theirs, what is ours, and who is whose. They also do a lot of sub-associations in the area, which I had mentioned in the past that is kind of nice because he does do a lot of the subs. He's mowing, for instance, in the summer on the same day. So everything looks uniform and it's all done at the same time versus if we go with a new vendor and they don't have those sub-associations, the lawn's gonna get cut, so it's gonna be uneven. Might not be a big deal, but it might be to some people. Obviously, Paul has a good reputation and has done a great job in the past. I mean, I really get complaints from any residents or anything on any of his work. Very happy with him. Venstra, as you heard from today, is a vendor that a lot of gas managers use. They're very reputable too. Their price was a lot lower. It's hard to say if it's lower because they want the job or if prices are gonna go up. That, I don't know. Our third bid was from Outdoor Images, which is the company that we use for our bridge work. Another great company. The price was a lot higher. They said that's the best they could get us for the work, and just because it's such a unique property and so confusing with the city lines and the association lines. So that's kind of a background on the three companies. I did make a note on page 20 or 33. We did get a lot of complaints this year about trails not being plowed. People saying, you know, the city are plowing, why aren't you guys, and whatever. So I reached out to Brian Jung, and he said that they did move their snowfall to 1 inch. The only time that's really an issue is when our trails butt up to city trails. You know, theirs are done, ours aren't. That's when I'm getting the complaints. So that's something to consider, and if we're doing a monthly rate with either Benz, which they switched to, or Venstra, it maybe wouldn't matter if we did a 1 inch or 2 inch, because it's a flat rate no matter what. So that was just something to note. I guess management's recommendation would be to stay with Benz Enterprises, mainly because of just the oddness of this association and all the lines and property lines and knowing whose property is what. I mean, I've been here, this will be my 4th summer, and still there's properties, or areas that I don't even realize, you know, oh, that is ours. I thought it was mill pond or whatever, but he knows all those so well, and I just think that it might be a difficult job for a new vendor, but not saying Ventura or anyone can't do it, but it might take a year or two to learn the ropes.
So Fenstra is 30,000 less, like, why do you think that is? What are your thoughts behind that?
You guys?
I don't know if it's the Maple Grove location where they feel,
Right.
I mean, they're pretty significantly lower than everyone else.
Yeah, no.
And I was involved in the bid
No,
process,
he
so I can't.
wasn't. I mean, I personally think that they don't maybe realize how difficult it is, and he did mention that, you know, like square footage wise, it's maybe not a lot more than what they're doing for some properties, but it's the uniqueness, I think, that they aren't quite maybe understanding.
I think there's a lot more turning.
Yeah, a lot more turning and
trees
just
and-
such big area, and they
Yeah.
did walk it and drive it, and they went out on the golf cart with Vern one day, and it took them like 3 or 4 days to go through it all. I gave them maps and highlighted every area that we think that needs to get done. They seem to be able to come in this price. I mean, I don't know. It worries me a little bit that they're so much lower than the others, because I'm afraid that all of a sudden next year they're gonna go, ooh, we need to raise the prices, because this is a lot, taking us longer than we thought it would.
Yeah, because
So they're-
I noticed they wanted a 2-year contract, didn't
They
they?
said they would honor the pricing at a 2-year in their
Mhm.
correspondence.
I wonder what they would do after that. Where's Ben's located? I'm sorry, I don't know.
They're out of shop.
Oh, they're out of shop, okay.
One thing I would just remind people is that this board approved a 2018 budget for our grounds contract of $97,000, not to exceed.
Does that include snow removal, or is that a separate line? Can it carry, is that a separate line, or is it,
I can tell you in a second.
I don't have
Look it up.
financials.
This guy's still a computer here.
I should have that here.
Sorry,
Financials contract. So your grounds contract is just for summer work, is 97,000. You have 15,000 for snow removal.
So this contract would encompass both those lines, right?
Correct.
12,000
112, so.
for the year.
Just took over.
So a total of 112, is that what you said? We budgeted 112,000 for 2018.
What was Ben's,
120?
no, what were they at
What were they
prior?
at prior?
Well, it was a per event.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, okay,
We just changed over with them, having them do monthly,
gotcha.
so.
And so that was a request from us?
Natalie's the one who suggested it to Ben's because she wanted to keep it in sequence and knowing for budget reasons what we're paying monthly instead of, I mean, that's something we could definitely change. I'm sure Ben's would probably prefer to go back to that. I don't, like Corey said, I think you're up to your.
Way to competitively bid it at a per event, you guys.
Right.
Yeah, just you mean you could do apples to apples, but
But we still won't know hard on what the total is going to be.
I was just trying to look at what our total cost for 2017
Can
was
we look that up?
for those two lines.
2017, maybe 2016.
So I'll make my plug for Ben's. I mean, they have done a fantastic job for a number of years with the association. I believe that in many years past, especially their last contract, they came in significantly under our other quotes, tens of thousands. The only thing that I would say, if you look at this total December, total 2017 amount, is that there's been invoices in the past on a per-hour basis for spring and fall cleanup, and it looks like they've now put that as a fixed cost. So if these two lines for 2017 come back at 110,000, it's probably 120,000 when you add in those spring and fall hourly charges.
With Ben's?
Right. So,
So what do we do about the difference?
Ben's negotiable.
yeah, and if I was in Paul's shoes and we requested them to go to a fixed contract, I would build a little bit of cushion there. I mean, that's might be why we see a little bit of sticker shock. But they do a fantastic job.
Your Crown's
What-
contract.
This is a question for you guys. What percentage of your associations that you manage are on a fixed monthly?
I'm sorry, I'm here listening to two people. Can you start over?
Do you know, just a rule of thumb, what relative percentage of your associations are on a fixed monthly budget in relation to their mow and snow, and then which are per event?
As far as my properties are concerned, 100% of them are on a flat rate.
I'd say very high majority, over 90% are flat. The reason that is I'm trying to think of what year it was. It was 2010, 2011, where we had a tremendous amount of snow, and people were on per occurrence contracts. Associations ran out of money, put them under, because the snow bill was so high. And that's when a lot of associations went then to a flat rate, so they could budget it and make sure they had the funds to be able to pay their snow bill. I mean, it's a preference, it's a way to budget. It does, I think it, like, the gentleman from Fenster was saying, it averages itself out. You're gonna have some years where you're like, we're paying this much for snow removal, but we've only had them out 6 times.
Yep.
But then there's gonna be a winter where they're gonna be out 25 times. So it averages itself out over, we figure, about 5 years. You might have up and down years. It's mainly for budgeting purposes and to, know that what you're gonna spend each year.
With the way that we budgeted this last time around with 2018, it was based on a zero-based budget, right? So we're looking for ways to create a budget, set it, and then look to abide by that. And that's where this monthly rate, I think, came into the conversation, is it allows us to look at that budget and really create a realistic objective for trying to balance our budget.
So I found some facts, it's 104, about 104.8, and then 4.2 for snow and mow. So it's about 109,000
Yep.
In 2017?
in 2017 actual cost, based on those December financials. You know, it's about 110% of our previous, but it locks it in for 3 years. So if you figure, you know, a small increase each year, you know, say 2 or 3%, it's probably about right on money from previous spend.
That was on a per event basis.
This was on a per event basis, correct?
And the one thing I would
Or
also
actual.
mention is, we had a pretty mild winter last year,
Yep, and this year.
and this
This is
year.
a mild winter.
Mhm. We've had, what, three events?
Maybe 4, I think only 3, yeah.
Well,
And we're in
that
February.
doesn't count cold.
I think it's just, it kind of fell all at once. It hasn't been scattered.
Oh, Minnesota.
It's just cold.
I don't know, I think the plug for Ben's is
So cold.
Yeah.
feasible. I think the price is definitely a little higher than I would like, but their experience being here is, I think, critical. I haven't heard any complaints with the lawns, fall cleanup,
yeah.
right? I mean, leaves, they seem to have done a nice job. I mean, it does go a long ways, so. And they're closer.
You know, one strategy could be to ask them to lock in their rate for 5 years. Move this contract, lock in for 5 years, that allows for about a 2% increase per year based on this contract price,
Wait,
on a weighted basis.
What contract price?
The 120, but ask them to lock in it for 5 years.
So they going over our budget by about 8,000. How much?
It'd be about 8,000, roughly 10%.
Are we saving that in copy, printed copy paper?
There you go.
Can we regain that money back?
Yeah, so then how do we get the money back?
So you think a 5-year contract?
I thought you were gonna say that.
Locked in.
I'm just throwing out a suggestion, if we're concerned about future,
Well, when he was here talking to us, he was very, he seemed like he really wanted to work with us. And he-
Finster.
Oh, yeah, I
Or
would, I
Paul.
think the Finster, I think both.
Paul was here last month, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Paul, I'm talking
Yes.
Oh,
about.
yeah.
The one we've had.
No, I
So-
think Paul would consider it, especially since, you know, we've worked from doing a summer and a fall contract, alternating times. There's a lot of ambiguity with that. To
Sure.
doing one contract for a full time period provides a lot of stability for his business
Right,
and for us.
right. I think possibly we should consider asking him to do a 5-year. He can always say no, we can do the 3-year, but then we don't have to do this. Every,
What is management's thought on that, I think?
That would be my agreements.
3 or 5.
3 or 5, well, 5 if he'll do it, would be great. And for him, it's locking in a guaranteed 5-year contract for him, for good money, so.
I think
My
it's-
only concern with this contract is it's an all-in cost. There isn't a per-hour charge that we'll see in the spring cleanup or the fall cleanup. So that's my really only concern with the contract as presented. It appears to be all in, but there is some modifiers on there at 51 an hour. Or if we request additional plowing, which all seems reasonable.
Yeah.
When was the last time we requested additional plowing?
Probably 3 years ago.
Carrie, have you ever requested additional plowing?
2013.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Have you ever requested additional plowing?
No.
So I'd like to make a motion that we accept the Ben's Enterprise contract for the value of $120,280 per year for a term of 5 years. If denied by the vendor, we would authorize the president to execute the agreement for 3 years.
For 3 years, you said?
Yeah, so we do it for 5 years, and if they deny that, you would still have authority to enter an agreement for 3 years. And the reason why I added that is that if, you know, I'm assuming that it wouldn't change the board's mind, but we would prefer the longer contract. Otherwise, they'd have to come back to us again next month for approval.
Are you adding in anything, sorry, that's a motion.
Then a motion.
Yeah. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion, any second, any further discussion? Does that include, lost my train of thought, those adders in for any yearly or annual increases?
No.
Okay. No. I just remember you mentioned that. So-
Well, that's how I kind of logicked out the 10% increase over
It's over our
current
budget.
contract, is that he basically has to build it in if he signed a contract for 3 years. He might get a little bit more in the first year, but by third year, you know, inflation's gonna catch up with him.
Well, we have a motion and a second. The one thing that I would just like to mention and just express personally, I think that we need to be very mindful of the, okay, for one, Paul Benz is a phenomenal vendor for us. He's been doing a great job. He's been doing this for a very long time. The one thing I would just caution the board on moving forward is we are tasked with being fiscally responsible. And, you know, when you have a budget in place, it's our job to guide our association in that direction. So I'm not saying that I disagree or I do not approve of what the board is expressing as a motion. I would just like to mention that it's very important and crucial that we continue to be fiscally responsible in all of our decision-making. Any further discussion? So, call in favor, call the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. Any abstentions? Motion passes. 4 to 1. All right, Christmas in May. So we've done this ever since I've been on the board. The one thing I would just like to point out, last year, there was some discussion around this. The initiative as it stands is it benefits or improves and addresses maintenance needs of all of Chaska, not a distinct focus on Jonathan. But I would open it up to further discussion amongst the board.
Last summer, I think you and I talked about it, and I contacted Chris Nelson, who is one of the co-chairs, and I asked him kind of what the process is and if he's ever had anybody from Jonathan apply. And he said that he didn't know if he had anyone from Jonathan apply, but what the process is that they actually have to go to this Christmas in May program and apply, and they also have to meet and discuss with what they want, but they also have, they kind of lose their anonymity or whatever. People will know who they are. And he said that holds a lot of people back from even applying for it. Because there's places in Jonathan here that really could use that, and yet no one applies. It doesn't cost anything to apply. And I asked him about that, and he said, you really can't knock on someone's door and ask them to apply. But, you know, if you know of somebody, you can ask them, but I don't know anybody, but I know there's areas that need help. So I think the $500 that goes out from us is supporting our community bigger than just Jonathan. We don't know if anybody is going to apply from Jonathan. Do we want that stipulation?
Real quick, last year, the city did come to my office and asked. They said they couldn't believe it, but same reason, because people are kind of maybe embarrassed or whatever.
Right.
Asking for the help. They had a low list last year, so they were looking for people to be
Right.
nominated. So I don't know if you guys recall that we nominated a couple properties that we thought maybe could use the help.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Mm.
and all of them denied it.
All the people,
The people that we
The homeowners
requested, so then
denied
they
it?
send a letter to that resident
Yep.
saying, you were nominated for Christmas in May, and then those people have to accept or deny, and they all deny it.
wow.
Is this something that we want to continue contributing to? I know it's a good cause, but we need to make a decision here.
I'm hearing a lot of it's gonna be a tough financial year for us. Based on our previous conversation.
Right.
Of, $9,000 over budget for our new contract coming up, and we knew coming into this year, it's gonna be tough operationally. Add that the fact of, I think we requested if any homes had been impacted by this in the years we've donated, and the answer was no, that it would not be a prudent or wise decision for the board to contribute again. In fact, I believe in the past, didn't the board, has refrained from giving donations? What was that, last year?
You talked about it last year, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there have been some causes that have come up, and it's been more of a, low-level decision that we just shied away from making donations, not knowing whether our members support that cause. And, I would recommend that, as residents of Jonathan or members of the Jonathan Association, that they contribute to causes that they feel should be contributed to. I don't know that it's actually the board or it's the association's responsibility to contribute in various ways, so different charitable causes. I think that should be left up to individual homeowners.
I think with the unknown cost of the Karen House potentially too.
Could we offer, maybe a half-page ad in our next newsletter to promote volunteerism as a,
Yeah.
we can't contribute financially this year, however, we will give you half a page in the newsletter if you want to place an ad for our members of our community to volunteer.
That's not a bad idea, because I didn't even know about it until I got on the board, so it's a good idea.
When is the next newsletter scheduled?
I believe May.
oh,
It's
that's
gonna
so
be,
late.
it's either gonna be late, or,
We can put it on the website, though.
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
that's an idea.
So it sounds to me like we are looking to shy away from contributing to Christmas in May.
It's March.
Should we vote?
Sure.
It might be March, not the newsletter. Judy's in charge of it, but I'm trying to think, now maybe it is March and like September? So then it would be in time.
It's aside from the action we're looking to make tonight. I think that's something that you can go ahead and explore on your own.
Okay.
So you looking for a
I'm
motion on the
looking
way?
looking for a motion here with this required action.
I make a motion that we do not donate $500 to Christmas in May, but we will offer them a half-page ad in our newsletter.
We have a motion?
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. All right. Insurance bids, we kind of went over that. Is there anything further? I don't think so. Website update. Looks like it's live.
It is. Clint I put it in front of you, I forgot to include in the board packet. He put together just some scenarios of the old website and what we spent and kind of comparing to what hopefully down the road will save us money. I think the website is awesome.
It does.
We're actually having a training tomorrow. They're coming into our office to just kind of train us. So we're hoping that we can end up doing any changes, adding to the calendar, that type of thing, so that we can put them in. We don't have to contact a second source and pay them to do it. So they're coming in tomorrow. And I think there's a few things that maybe could be tweaked a little, like, I don't know if you guys have looked, but like the documents, it's just page after page of documents.
Mhm.
There seems to be no reason or rhyme to it. So I was gonna talk to them about that. Maybe having the videos, you click on the videos and you pick them up, versus having them all mixed up with the documents. But there is a search engine, so you can put in what you're looking for and it pulls it right up. But is there anything that any of you have noticed that you would like to see change? Or that are hard to find, or?
I just like the fresh look of everything.
Yeah.
It looks good.
And when you open it up, you're kinda like, oh. Yeah. Good way.
So I guess if there's anything that you guys, when you are playing around with it, notice, maybe shoot me an email so that we can let them know. If there's anything, sometimes, you know, people go on it and it's like, I cannot find this certain whatever. Their search engine is great. Anytime I plug anything in there, it pulls it right up. But those are just a few things that we noticed, but otherwise I think it turned out really great.
What's the address of it? Is that this jonathanandchaska.com?
Correct.
Okay.
Same, yep.
Board photos and bios, I saw that on there. Oh, might need to have some professional photos taken.
Too expensive.
They can be.
Yeah, no, it looks good. It's certainly interesting to see the breakdown here. I, for one, can say that I think the change, moving towards where we are now with our current website, supplier and designer, I think it feels like we're at a really good place.
I think so. It was a good move, I think.
I think getting the data collection too is gonna be nice.
Okay.
Cool.
Good stuff.
No, Steve's bio isn't on there.
Yeah.
That's Steve? Are you talking about him or Steven?
Steven.
Well, that,
He's
No.
too new, we gotta get it on there.
Steve, Stefan, and Stephen.
Do you go by Steve or Steven?
Steven.
Steven. Are you an
You
Ian?
get Ian.
No, I'm a V,
A V, okay.
Steve, Stefan, and Steve.
just to keep it straight.
Nomination committee.
Yep. Well, John Hayes and I and Clint met a couple times, and we came up with some names of people, and we talked to them. And I spoke with Emily Walter, sorry. And she showed an interest, she was interested somewhat, but she said that if there was no one else that was interested in running, that she would consider it. But then we've talked with Amy, and Amy said she definitely would. So Emily has chosen not to run then. And then we have Justin and Stefan. And I guess Greg Bowe and Kevin Brown. Greg definitely didn't want to, I think, but he'd be a good resource. I don't know about Kevin.
Has anyone dropped off any applications?
That's one.
One? Okay.
Oh. Different than
We
Amy?
can,
Should I say? Yeah, different from me.
Oh. Okay.
So.
We have Justin and Stefan and Amy and one other person, I guess.
the nominating committee, you know, they're tasked with, so annually they get together, they make nominations, they make recommendations in the form of nominations, and then there's a separate piece that goes along with the annual election. People are able to essentially nominate themselves or express interest and apply to be elected on the board.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of two different processes going on here.
Right.
All right.
So that's it.
All right. Request for action from residents, page 84. This is the neighborhood sign. So, you guys should see a map here. I had Carrie print these off. This is the plot in question. The only reason I bring it up is because it looks like one of the trees is in our plat, and the other tree is on the homeowner's property. And with those trees probably being planted there well over 10 years ago, we really have no idea when they were planted, who planted them. Not really sure. But essentially what we're looking for here is a resident would like 2 of these trees taken down. Is that correct?
And 2 new ones.
2 news put in.
Yeah.
I think these trees definitely provide some privacy, a nice backdrop to the existing sign. It takes a number of years to get a tree to grow that big. I don't know why we'd want to take it down. I didn't see that it encroached upon the front of the sign at all.
So is
When I
this
drove by.
Yes.
the resident's home that's there? Oh, okay.
So we're talking this tree and that tree?
Yeah.
Not this
I haven't physically seen them. Do they look bad?
No.
No, they're a nice backdrop.
Yeah. Is there, I mean,
They said that they had down branches and dead branches and stuff from it.
That's just clearing
Typically, that's how those evergreens, they shed
They do.
branches. and-
Well, they're big. We have them. They're like, but to cut them down's hard.
Trim them up.
You can trim them up, yeah.
oh, they're overshadowing the sign?
No, that sign is very.
That's what he says.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna see your house. Take those down.
This could be an easy decision.
Well, you're still gonna see the whole backyard.
You don't see much.
Please make a motion.
We take an easy decision and make it hard on ourselves.
In the summer, when I go by.
That's not our tree, we can't take it down. We have one tree, the other tree is theirs. So we can't make any decision here tonight. Really, we're not gonna remove our tree. If the homeowner essentially wants to do whatever they want with their tree, they can.
Yep.
We have really no authority to do anything else.
Right.
We like the tree that's there.
We would recommend that they keep the tree, but
We can cut it.
they could if they wanted to. We just, the one tree is ours, and I don't think we want to cut it down.
Nope. Do we need to vote on it?
No.
Okay.
So the sign in that one tree this is Jonathan property?
Correct.
Thank you.
That's what he
Double checking.
wants down, right?
Yeah, he wants both of them.
Calendar event.
Calendar events, okay.
So what should we do here? Anything? Any action from us?
You need to probably deny it, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. I just did.
All right, I'll look for a motion to deny the request for action.
I'll make a motion to deny the action, cut down 2 trees.
Okay. Have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Well, I would just say, and you guys will take this and you notify the homeowner that that's your kind of standard operating procedure. Let them know where we're at. You know, if you want to show them this map, feel free to.
Yep.
This is a good process, though. When they come to us, they have a request for action. This is all good. It's just that the trees aren't, they're not both ours and they're not both his, and it's kind of fumbly a little bit, so.
Call the question.
Call a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. All right, that concludes the request for action. Moving on to general reports, we have the calendar of events. Like I said, the annual meeting is next week on the 20th. Looking forward to it. I don't think there's really anything else. So, no general reports. Is there anything anyone would like to address in relation to any committees?
Mr. President, I'd like to bring forward the Architectural Review Committee. Currently, it's down to just 2 members, myself and Steve. And we would put the request out there for perhaps another board member to become involved or take over a chair position. It's good to rotate the chair every now and then, but we definitely could use some members to be part of the committee. Regardless, it needs to be on the board's radar for next month to potentially add some additional members, either by appointment or by volunteerism.
What is the architect, what is it?
The Architectural Review Committee receives architectural review applications. So anytime a homeowner wants to
Oh,
paint their
yeah, yeah,
house,
gotcha.
put shingles, do an addition, we receive everything from driveway requests to planting trees, to building new homes, to a complaint about someone sheds on my property.
Got it. You need somebody now?
No, but probably by March, we will, because we start to gear up with numerous requests. Typically, we operate via email. If there's something that needs to be done in person, or if we become gridlocked, we'll call an in-person meeting, but most of the time it's by email. So there's not a lot of time commitment. Just, you know, when the emails come along, to respond within about 24 to 48 hours. Because a lot of times our requests have need for additional information. So we'll review it, we'll put a request for additional information, and then it comes back to us to make the actual decision, so. Proficiency in searching Home Depot's website, looking at colors is probably a qualification. Researching declarations would be a qualification. If you have any experience in that, you would contribute greatly to the team.
Are you looking for somebody now? I can volunteer.
We would be more than happy to take
Sure.
your volunteer. Congratulations, you are now part of the team.
I met someone who wanted me to say thank you for approving her house cover.
Oh, thank you.
That was unexpected.
Well, it was probably an earth tone color palette. And,
No, it was not. It was like, it was the Midnight Blue House.
Oh, the one
Remember
that
that
came
one?
to our meeting.
Oh, which one's that?
We were at the Karen house and he came.
With the color.
Oh, I mean the one we denied originally and then the
Right.
board approved? Oh, that one. So you're thinking the board in that case?
Yes,
Yes.
not you, Stefan. Everybody else.
Okay, so, well, thank you for volunteering. We'll be sure to include you on emails when we receive a request. Typically, the end of March, beginning of April, we see a flood of applications come in as people prepare to do spring projects. So, thank you.
Anything else? No? So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the February meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Call a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.